Zhang Yi's wrist, the silver bracelet instantly transformed. Twisted silver vines coiled into a long sword, its tail end plunging into his arm as it drew upon his strength. Copy that. Inside the ghost train's cockpit, Heavenly Jet Star Dai Sheng, clad in a captain's uniform, stared intently ahead with a stern expression. His supernatural abilities activated, his mind already locking onto the coordinates surrounding the Hades Gatekeeper. Whoosh! The ghost train materialized directly mid-air, rumbling as it crushed through the void. The instant the train appeared, the relentless barrage pounding the Hades Gatekeeper's body halted momentarily. Without a moment's hesitation, and without even turning his head, he pointed his right hand toward the right side. Star of Destruction. A psychic cannon blast, imbued with immense destructive power, swept across the entire space where the ghost train had materialized. Zhang Yi stood at the front of the train, his heart racing with both tension and excitement as he pushed his supernatural abilities to their absolute limit. The sword in the tree in his right hand erupted with a low shout, splitting from the tip like a blossoming flower. Boom! In an instant, the single sword in the tree transformed into tens of thousands of silver vines, covering an area no less than 30 kilometers in diameter. The Epsilon-level sword in the tree now possessed terrifying growth speed and resilience. Most crucially, being transformed from a mutant and possessing plant-like properties, it exhibited extraordinary adaptability and growth potential. Zhang Yi instructed Liu Karen to infuse E-metal into the tree sword. This further enhanced its toughness and sharpness. The countless slender vines rapidly intertwined, weaving a vast silver net across the entire front of the ghost train. Without hesitation, Shang Daowen directly reinforced Zhang Yi's net with his psychic barrier. Simultaneously, Zhang Yi unleashed everything under heaven, and activated the ability time-space reversal. In order to block just one attack from the Hades Gatekeeper, Zhang Yi had to expend his full strength. Boom! The black energy entity slammed into the net, causing the massive, layered web to instantly buckle inward. Every vine snapped and tensed to its limit. Snap! The sound of vines snapping echoed continuously. The net was nearly shattered completely, stretched to its absolute limit as if it might tear apart at any moment. Yet, after less than 2 seconds of stalemate, it ultimately withstood the Hades Gatekeeper's full force. Even the Hades Gatekeeper himself hadn't anticipated this, a hint of astonishment flashing in his eyes. Now, Zhang Yi had expended immense energy to block the attack. The next move was now up to Li Changgong and Alexe. Rumble! Seizing the moment, the ghost train traversed the void. Originally 4 or 5 kilometers away from the Hades Gatekeeper, it instantly closed to within a kilometer. Here, Li Changgong's sword could slash through the Hades Gatekeeper's body, and Alexei's battle axe could use Thunder Call to strike him. Wah! Silver lightning raged wildly within Alexei's eyes. As the Thunder Tyrant, he raised his battle axe high. With his thick arms, honed from a lifetime of chopping wood, he thundered the roaring thunder and brought the axe crashing down toward the Hades Gatekeeper's head. The Hades Gatekeeper's gaze sharpened. Alexei's timing was perfect, his strike launched the very moment the Gatekeeper moved. Yet the Gatekeeper remained utterly still. Instead, a terrifying dark radiance erupted from his body, sweeping out in all directions. Falling asteroid. Black light erupted, blocking Alexei's thunder-forged battle axe. Crack! The massive battle axe struck the dark spherical energy, 2 powerful forces colliding violently. Yet the gap in strength between Alexe and the Hades Gatekeeper remained vast. Roar! Alexei's rage boiled over. He couldn't tolerate his attack being nullified, so his left hand also struck down with a fierce blow. Both bolts of thunder slammed into the energy shield of the Dark Star, yet they failed to destroy it. Instead, his thunder was instantly shattered. As a warrior of the fighting nation, he never feared death, nor did he show cowardice before powerful foes. The stronger the enemy, the more frenzied he became. This was the origin of the Tyrant ability. Crack! A terrifying bolt of lightning plummeted from the heavens as Alexei roared, his eyes now consumed by intense lightning and fury. His massive arms raised battle axes, both blades slashing down with brutal force against the Hades Gatekeeper. The Thunder God's full-force strike landed squarely on the Hades Gatekeeper's Dark Star. In that instant, Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen clearly witnessed how his desperate attack had truly shattered a corner of the Hades Gatekeeper's seemingly impenetrable defense. His defense was breached. But after the strike, Alexe himself was far from unscathed. The immense force of the blow recoiled violently, hurling his body through the air like a broken kite. Blood gushed profusely from his mouth. Zhang Yi roared, "Move!" Shang Daowen raised his right hand, using telekinesis to grab Alexei's body and pull him toward the ghost train. Alexei's actions weren't reckless, he was doing this to create an opportunity. An opening where Li Changgong could strike without pressure. Among them all, only his unstoppable ability could truly wound the Hades Gatekeeper. Zhang Yi and Alexe gave their all, blocking two of the Hades Gatekeeper's attacks for him. And of course, Li Changgong dared not miss this golden opportunity. He had prepared his battle stance for a long time. This draw would be unimaginably swift. Whoosh! His sword truly left its scabbard, streaking like a snow-white ribbon straight toward the Hades Gatekeeper's body. It aimed for the central axis of his torso, intent on splitting him clean in two. Only now did the Hades Gatekeeper sense a flicker of danger. It seemed utterly unbelievable to him. Could these feeble humans truly threaten him? Yet the sword's flash, closing in that instant, carried an aura capable of slashing everything. Facing this strike, the Gatekeeper's body hadn't yet returned to its normal defensive posture after dealing with Zhang Yi and Alexe. Thus, the instant the sword touched his body, he executed a movement. Mid-air, he gently twisted his torso. Li Changgong's sword was already blindingly fast, yet his evasion seemed even quicker, so swift it rendered his form indistinguishable. The gleaming sword streaked past him, grazing his side. I Am Heaven's Will, capable of slashing through any attack, had struck empty air. Zhang Yi and the others' pupils suddenly contracted, their eyes filled with indescribable regret and frustration. Alexe, mortally wounded from his desperate strike, coughed up blood in great gulps. Witnessing this scene, his eyes brimmed with helplessness. The gap in strength was simply too vast. The Hades Gatekeeper's abilities were unadorned, devoid of any flashiness. Yet often, the simplest things proved the most difficult to counter. For he possessed almost no weaknesses. Whether in close combat or ranged tactics, his prowess was terrifyingly beyond reach. Even this fatal sword stroke, he could evade with perfect precision in the blink of an eye. A sense of helplessness enveloped everyone's hearts. Facing an opponent of this level, what possible strategy could there be? Zhang Yi's heart grew heavy. Could it be that now was the time to unleash that final move? But could that technique truly slay such a terrifying monster? If even that failed, the entire Huashu kingdom would be utterly doomed. At that very moment, a sharp, crisp sound caught everyone's attention. Crack! Zhang Yi snapped his head up. He saw the armor on the Hades Gatekeeper's body crack. No, to be precise, the armor on his chest had been cleanly sliced off, falling to the ground. We haven't failed. He didn't dodge that sword entirely. Shang Daowen exclaimed excitedly. Li Changgong grinned with excitement, so close. So very close to landing that strike. Just one drop of his blood, and victory would be ours. The Hades Gatekeeper looked down at his shattered breastplate. A large section of the chest plate had been cleanly severed. Its self-repair function couldn't be used indefinitely, after all, materials were finite. Not everyone was Zhang Yi, carrying multiple spare battle suits. In the sky, intense ultraviolet radiation struck his chest, instantly causing his skin to visibly discolor. It was as if a human stood at a volcanic crater. Even the most physically fit humans couldn't overcome biological limitations and remain unaffected by extreme heat. Thus, even a top-tier Wuluan clan warrior like the Hades Gatekeeper couldn't fully adapt to an environment saturated with ultraviolet radiation. Rage surged through him in an instant. He lifted his head, his eyes fixed on Zhang Yi and the others, filled with raw, unadulterated murderous intent. Then, raising his right fist, he unleashed a punch across a kilometer's distance in an instant. Unadorned and seemingly ordinary, yet this fist brimmed with devastating power. Wrapped in unimaginable might and a howling tempest, it slammed toward the ghost train where Zhang Yi and his companions stood. In that instant, the enraged Hades Gatekeeper cast a shadow of mortal peril over Zhang Yi and his companions. The four felt the air itself compress into a dense mass, their throats constricting with unbearable irritation, breathing becoming painfully laborious. Inside the train, Ho Tu, seated upright in her compartment, sharpened her gaze. She set down her engraving knife and murmured softly, "Azura's path." Centered on the ghost train, the domain of the 6 paths of reincarnation fully activated. Within the dark void, 2 figures materialized in this area. One tall, one short, one plump, one thin. These were her newest Azura puppets, Shadow Phantom and Nyatang. Those she killed could be absorbed into the cycle of reincarnation, their abilities and even combat prowess perfectly replicated, then summoned for her use. Upon materializing, Shadow Phantom and Nyatang immediately positioned themselves in front of the ghost train. Shadow Phantom raised both hands, summoning hundreds of shadow giants. Nyatang channeled his supernatural energy, condensing a destruction energy cannon to confront the Hades Gatekeeper. Boom! A blinding flash erupted, obliterating both Azura warriors instantly. Yet their sacrifice shielded Zhang Yi and his allies from the brunt of the assault. The remaining shockwaves were neutralized by Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen working together. Rumble! The ghost train plunged back into the void, traversing to another dimension. The peril on the main battlefield was beyond others' comprehension, yet now, no one on the entire battlefield had the leisure to concern themselves with others' fates. Each faced opponents equally formidable and deadly. From the ocean to the land, fierce battles erupted everywhere. Liang Yu and Flower remained on standby. Positioned at the edge of Tianhai City, they showed no intention of intervening despite the raging conflicts all around. All of this stemmed from the mission Zhang Yi had entrusted to them. Your strength isn't yet sufficient to decide the outcome of a battle, especially when facing Black Chariot-level mutant. Therefore, the optimal moment to enter the fray is after the battle has progressed to a certain stage. Then, you strike and reap the entire battlefield. As Zhang Yi spoke these words, he absent-mindedly rubbed his nose. His expression seemed sly, yet his tone was utterly straightforward. If we win this battle, we'll gain vast quantities of high-tier mutant origin. Such resources are impossible to obtain normally. The epsilon in the human world is limited. Where else could you find so much origin? Therefore, learn to see opportunity within crisis. Seize this chance well. It won't delay our campaign, but will accelerate your own growth. This was Zhang Yi's plan. Thus, as the mobile strike force, they had held back, conserving strength and waiting until the critical moments across all battlefields to enter and reap the rewards. On other battlefields, they faced familiar adversaries whose capabilities were well understood. Thus, the fighting remained deadlocked, with neither side capable of securing a decisive victory in the short term. When all of Huashu Kingdom's forces were mobilized, and both space-based weapons and heavenly dimensional weapons became operational, even with fewer Black Chariot-level mutants, they could leverage home field advantage to fight the Wuluan Empire's mutants to a standstill. Yet the Wuluan Empire's mutant forces paid this little attention. They awaited their Grand Commander to eliminate the Allied forces' most elite mutant, then lead them to sweep across the entire battlefield. Zhang Yi and his companions used the ghost train to vanish once more. Meanwhile, the Hades Gatekeeper, whose armor had been cut through, finally began to feel a surge of irritation welling up inside. He had expected this visit to be a straightforward sweep, obliterating this human realm entirely. Yet, he found himself constantly caught in the enemy's rhythm, possessing overwhelming power yet unable to swiftly achieve victory. Especially after his armor was destroyed, his body, now exposed to intense ultraviolet radiation, suffered severe discomfort. Clenching his fists, he began indiscriminately pounding the surroundings with even more violent force. At this pace, he would soon obliterate the entire Tianhai city and plow straight through to its outskirts. At that point, a single casual attack could potentially erase the 36 heavenly spirits at the city's edge, thereby breaking the 9-Palace 8 formation diagram. Zhang Yi and the others fled to another area, still within Tianhai City's boundaries. Their first action, naturally, was to administer medication to Alexe. Zhang Yi had Zhou Qir emerge from the shadow space to treat Alexe. This convenient, portable capability was truly enviable. Li Changdong secretly sent Zhang Yi a message through the communication channel. Zhang Yi, if we fail this battle, you absolutely must take me with you when you leave. Better safe than sorry. Li Changdong wasn't stupid, he quickly grasped this point. Zhang Yi shot him a glance but said nothing. Joking aside, the priority then would be securing the lives of himself and his companions. As for Li Changdong, that would depend on his mood. Shang Daowen spoke up at this moment. The Hades Gatekeeper is clearly enraged. This proves our actions are indeed effective. We were so close to making him bleed. So now, we should keep using this tactic. Zhang Yi replied without hesitation, it'll be tough. He patiently explained, his true power far exceeds what he's shown us. That single punch just now nearly killed us all. He's holding back because of that mysterious rule. But I suspect if he's willing to take the risk and unleash his full might, even our combined strength might not be enough to withstand his attack. Zhang Yi spoke, his gaze shifting to Alexe, who was recovering. His body had taken the full brunt of the Hades Gatekeeper's force head-on, sustaining severe injuries. Not just Alexe, even Zhang Yi had suffered during the brief battle. A third of his dimensional gate had been destroyed, and the supernatural energy within him was rapidly draining. He now had to consume food mid-battle to replenish his energy reserves. After all, he still needed to sustain the consumption of the sword in the tree. The entire fight had lasted less than 3 minutes thus far. Rather than hoping for heaven's might to take effect, it was more pressing to figure out how to preserve their own lives. They might not be able to hold off the Hades Gatekeeper for long. Yet retreat was utterly impossible. If they retreated, all the top-tier mutants gathered here from Tianhai City would perish. The Wuluan Empire's forces would then sweep through like a tidal wave, obliterating the core regions of every region. The Huashu Kingdom would be utterly finished. Damn it! Li Changdong gritted his teeth, snarling, if only I could use the Reaper of Love. That was humanity's most formidable weapon. They had already deployed it at the war's outset, yet it had failed to inflict even a scratch on the Hades Gatekeeper and his group. This suggested they possessed some means to withstand attacks of this level. How could they possibly confront an enemy even the Reaper of Love could not slay? We must create a second opportunity for Go Chen's sword to slash him. Shang Daowen declared. But his speed is too great. Now that he's prepared for Go Chen's abilities, executing our tactic again will be even harder. Zhang Yi countered. We have to try. The group argued fiercely. This battle was too crucial for all of Huashu Kingdom, indeed, for all of humanity. No one dared to be careless. The immense pressure of this battle made even Zhang Yi unable to remain completely calm. Just then, Yang Xinxin's voice reached Zhang Yi's ears. Brother, calm down. Her cool yet gentle and melodious voice gradually cleared the confusion in Zhang Yi's mind. Xinxin, do you have any good suggestions? Yang Xinxin had been observing the entire time. As Zhang Yi's mental support, she always provided him with optimal strategies. She spoke calmly and swiftly, the Hades Gatekeeper's strength is too formidable, at least 40,000 points. In terms of raw power alone, he's on an entirely different level from you. Although your initial tactics were successful, they didn't actually inflict any damage on him. It merely caused him some inconvenience. The longer this drags on, the lower your chances of landing a successful strike become, while the risk of death only increases. It all boils down to a lack of power. Yang Xinxin's gaze grew intensely grave. Facing an enemy with such overwhelming superiority, even she couldn't maintain her usual composed expression. Yet she remained composed, for maintaining a clear mind and avoiding rash actions in any situation was the only way to increase their chances of completing the mission. Relying on Li Changdong is too risky, it can only be a backup plan. Therefore, we must activate the Reaper of Love. Zhang Yi frowned. I know that, but the Reaper of Love has no effect on him. That's not the case. Yang Xingxin shook her head. Brother, even your divine realm netherworld cleansing could shatter his armor. How could he remain unscathed under the Reaper of Love's attack, and even protect his subordinates? Zhang Yi's eyes lit up. You mean he used some kind of special artifact? That's precisely the source of the problem. We'll leave that aspect for the regional headquarters to investigate. Yang Xingxin stated calmly, I've already contacted Mengyuan Jun. I've asked them to analyze the energy fluctuations in the Tianhai City's sea area during the recent explosion of the Reaper of Love. And next, she took a deep breath. Rather than launching an offensive, brother, I suggest you and your team first restrain your temper and focus on defense. Zhang Yi pondered for a moment before asking, Xingxin, if we used your abilities, how long could we control him? Yang Xingxin answered decisively, the duration of control depends on the target's willpower. However, I don't recommend it. Based on the intelligence we have so far, the enemy possesses immense combat experience. Even if he's unaware of my abilities, he won't let the Angel of Desire's arrows strike his body. Zhang Yi understood that Yang Xingxin's point was valid. They currently had no way to control the Hades Gatekeeper, so Yang Xingxin's abilities had no room to be utilized. Zhang Yi relayed Yang Xingxin's suggestion to the others, then stated, for now, we can only buy time. Then we'll look for an opportunity to use the Reaper of Love to injure him. Li Chandong stared at Zhang Yi in disbelief. Chaos, have you lost your mind? The Reaper of Love? Even if we could fire it, the commotion would be too great. It'd likely be detected mid-flight. Have you forgotten how that previous shot of the Reaper of Love was blocked? Zhang Yi fixed him with a piercing stare, his voice steady. I know. Of course I know. But don't forget who I am. I'll find a way to catch him off guard. Seeing the unwavering confidence in Zhang Yi's eyes, Li Chandong wisely kept his mouth shut. Very well. We'll proceed with the second contingency plan. By time. Then wait for the god's punishment chaos mentioned to descend. Shang Daowen stated. He couldn't help but inwardly doubt, for he himself had never witnessed this so-called god's punishment. But Zhang Yi wouldn't joke about such matters now. They had no choice but to follow his orders. Linhai City. Newton and Canelo lured Blood Tide and his inability users to this location. As Blood Tide and his commander flew in from the sea, the moment they appeared over Linhai City, towering flames erupted beneath their feet. The explosives Newton had pre-positioned throughout the area detonated simultaneously. The blaze instantly engulfed both figures. Watching the violent explosion along the coastline, Canelo remarked to Newton, an explosion of this magnitude is unlikely to inflict significant lethal damage. Newton remained utterly composed. I know. But even if it only causes a slight disruption, it increases our odds of winning this battle. Especially, he pointed skyward. The powerful reinforcements we'll soon receive will complement such tactics effectively. Tianhai City was his chosen battlefield, which was precisely why he had arrived early to survey the surroundings. Based on his analysis, the main conflict would inevitably unfold in this sector. The facts proved his data-driven conclusions accurate. Mathematics never deceives. He adjusted his glasses as Deng Shintong's colossal heavenly Dao star soon blossomed across the sky. Intense ultraviolet light illuminated nearly 1,000 miles around, particularly around Linhai City, where the UV intensity was exceptionally high. The two flew out of the explosion, their armor indeed sustaining some damage. They set traps in advance. I'm genuinely curious, how did they know we'd fight here? Perhaps they've set identical traps at every other potential battlefield. They exchanged rapid-fire dialogue. Suddenly, the heavenly Dao star appearing in the sky instantly triggered a sense of physical discomfort within them. Much like humans entering oxygen-deprived zones, dizziness and disorientation were inevitable. Though the battle armor was resilient, it remained a product of technology. While it withstood the massive explosion, it also sustained damage. This compromise meant the intense ultraviolet radiation could no longer be completely blocked. From the very start of the confrontation, Newton leveraged the terrain to seize the initiative. This opponent seems tougher than the sea turtle we faced before, the black and white commander cautioned Bloodtide. That matters not. Bloodtide's voice was cool and detached. Around him, vast quantities of blood began to flow, coalescing into a colossal blood river. Within it flowed the blood of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians from East Sea City. Before absolute power, all resistance is futile. Their struggles are merely death throes. They didn't need victory, they merely sought something to occupy themselves while the Grand Marshal slaughtered his enemies. Bloodtide cared not for the outcome of this battle, for he knew defeat was impossible. Once the Hades Gatekeeper dealt with the Allied forces' strongest batch of combatants, this war would end. Newton and Canello arrived early at this battlefield. Having rehearsed this conflict countless times, no words were needed. Canello immediately fell back, leaving Newton to stand directly in the front line. Facing the distant enemy, Newton raised his right hand, brandishing the scientific hand cannon, Atheist. Canello, positioned farther back, similarly raised his sniper rifle. Their first target was the black and white commander, Nien. In a 2-on-2 battle, the priority was to eliminate the weaker opponent first, swiftly creating a 2-on-1 advantage. Canello's gaze pierced the vast distance. The watcher could see through everything, even penetrating buildings to pinpoint his target. Everything penetrates. He aimed directly at Nien and pulled the trigger. A specially engineered bullet, infused with his supernatural power, tore through the void, hurtling straight toward Nien. Newton raised his hand cannon almost simultaneously, using the tactical visor's assistive targeting to lock onto the enemy. Canello's ability could pierce through defenses. Even the most formidable foes would develop gaps in their protection after enduring his strike. Newton's hand cannon, however, delivered a pure energy blast. Thus, their combined combat strategy involved Canello first shattering the enemy's defenses, followed by Newton delivering the finishing blow. Their attacks, one preceding the other, instantly closed in upon Nien. Yet Nien's eyes suddenly snapped open. Here it comes! From dozens of meters away, Bloodtide raised a hand. The viscous blood river instantly coalesced into a colossal crimson orb, tightly surrounding both attackers within its grasp. Crack! Canello's black bullet struck the surface of the blood sphere, instantly opening a crack. Then, the Atheist's strike landed precisely on that opening. A single strike tore a massive hole in Bloodtide's defense. But Newton and Canello had no time to celebrate. The crimson orb, forged from the blood of hundreds of thousands, began repairing itself the instant they breached it. Immediately after, Nien raised both hands, aiming them at the long-deserted city below. Boom! The earth shook violently. This desolate city still preserved numerous structures from the era of human civilization. Towering skyscrapers rose from the ground, propelled by Nien's power into the sky, then hurtled toward Newton and Canello. Over a dozen skyscrapers plummeted toward Newton like toys. Newton remained utterly unflustered. Raising his right hand, the golden glow of his Atheist weapon surged forth. A single bullet erupted, its terrifying energy instantly reducing the colossal buildings before him to dust.